That's right. We are doing it live, orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason. We are presented by Sean Ponda, and we are on the verge of Broncos training camp, and we've got some Broncos kind of breaking news as we begin today's show, Mace.
Yeah, I was just over in the radio studio, and we get the breaking news blast. Jarrett Garantano, 3rd/4th team quarterback, was going to battle with Ben DiNucci, and now he's gone.
Yeah.
I feel really bad for him. I mean, you're going through the last 6 weeks, you're getting prepared, you're thinking, okay, this is my shot. I'm going to come in at training camp, going to set the world on fire, and then you get here. The veterans are checking in today, and you don't even get out there for a practice, and you're asked to turn in your playbook. Man, that is just brutal.
It's a brutal business,
Yeah.
man. And we'll see. Everyone needs a camp arm, so we'll see if Jarrett latches on somewhere else. Super quick, good news for Ben DiNucci, though.
Yeah.
Honestly, if they want to keep 3 quarterbacks with the new 3rd quarterback rule.
Yeah, and the thing is now, what it shows is that DiNucci was ahead of Garantano in the off-season work, OTAs and minicamp, to the point where the limited 3rd team reps, he wanted to give them all to him. Now, it doesn't mean that he's not competing against other quarterbacks around the league, could be cut at the deadline at the end of August, but the scarce reps, you want to give all those 3rd team reps to him. So it says a lot about him, and also doesn't really surprise me. I thought Garantano would come out behind Ben DiNucci in the end if they had a competition throughout the summer, and here we are.
Well, and I just have to throw in there about your other leagues. I call it a developmental league. When I talked to Ben after rookie minicamp, he got a little upset. He's like, I wouldn't say developmental, but either way, the XFL, the Packers, it's not a Packers show. They picked up Alex Magoo, the MVP of the USFL, who could sling it. And when you only have Sean Clifford behind Jordan Love, that's a good idea. But it's good that these other guys that are playing, that are slinging the rock, get an opportunity now.
I do feel a little bad for Alex Magoo. I mean, people probably call him Mr. Magoo.
That's an older reference. Maybe the kids won't get
the kids
Mr.
won't
Magoo.
get that one at all.
Yeah.
That's. I think the last thing with Mr. Magoo was when Leslie Nielsen did the live action movie back in the day. Anyway.
I was not expecting a Mr. Magoo, Leslie Nielsen reference today.
You did it by bringing up Alex Magoo. Because, again, where didn't he go to Florida International, by the way?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, all right. I've hijacked this thing enough.
Yeah. I've hijacked it with our rock and roll music, which I didn't press pause on. Sorry.
Wait, it was still playing?
It was still playing, yeah, for the first 3 minutes of the show.
Holy cow.
You wanted rock music. You got rock music on Orange and Blue today.
Also, Nick Williams, remember him, the wide receiver?
Yep.
He's coming back. Cherry Creek guy. They had him in briefly, and now he's back on the roster. That's on the transaction wire. And Brett Maher, we learned the news on Sunday. He's going to compete for the kicking job, and he is officially aboard as well.
Yes.
So that's all the housekeeping for today.
That is all the housekeeping, and thanks to the chat room for telling me to shut off the music. Anyway, Orange and Blue today, presented by Sean Ponda.
People in the chat are so helpful. I don't mean that sarcastically.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah.
No, we're doing it on our own, everybody. So we appreciate you all for helping us out. The new helmets, who dis snow-capped helmets, released by the Denver Broncos. They had promoted this. They had said it was coming. They had retweeted it about what's going to happen. Everyone's excited for what this look is going to look like. And it was met with, well, Mace, mixed reviews.
Depends. Okay. Let me see here. I'm going to go and check this out. I put a poll up this morning. 57% of the 2,073 people voting gave it an A. 31% gave it a B, 9% C, 3% D or F. I'd say 88% A or B is not mixed reviews.
Okay.
I'd say that's pretty positive.
Okay. Should it be pretty positive? What are you come down? You're the helmet guru on this.
I like the design of it. I actually think that the orange jerseys and pants, that look, I think it looks better with a white helmet than a navy blue helmet. I think it's pretty sharp. I liked it. I just wish they would have white pants rather than orange pants.
Yeah, they said they would only wear it with their rush uniforms. And I was actually, that's what made me the most disappointed. Like a white helmet with the old school D. Okay, yeah, I'm on board. And then they're like, we're only going to wear this like a few times. And I was like, oh, could wear it more, change it up.
And I think the other thing that leads to some disappointment from some fans is this. You have a bunch of other teams that are doing throwbacks. Like we saw the Tennessee Titans bring back the Oilers throwbacks.
Yeah. Did you see what inside the collar it said?
No, what did it say?
Love you, blue.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. It give me chills just talking about
wow.
it. Mm-hmm.
So they bring back the Columbia blue and the red. That's an all-time great uniform and a great color combination.
Yes.
The Seahawks bring back their royal blue, forest green uniforms with
Jim
the silver
Zorn,
helmets.
Steve Largent type days.
Yeah.
Kurt Warner, the running back.
All the way up to like Cortez Kennedy, John Kitna.
Yeah.
They wore those through 01. Those uniforms lasted quite a while.
Yeah.
But they promoted it by leaning into the 90s because, of course, grunge, Seattle scene, all that. You get that.
Wonderful.
Anyway, and the Bucks did their original throwbacks, and they wore those until 1996, but they leaned into the 70s vibe. Kind of they did like a faux disco party in the video where they unveiled it. And I think if there's disappointment, it's that you had all these teams that just said, we're going to straight up do throwbacks, right? And the Broncos didn't. I think people maybe on some level were hoping just give us the classic look, the Academy blue helmets, the orange jerseys, the white pants with a D. I think if there's a disappointment, maybe it's because of that.
Maybe it's because they didn't get that. But this is the first time in their franchise history that they're going to have a white helmet, which led you down a path with James Marilat off air about ranking the Broncos helmets. If we're to include this new white helmet, where would that be? Because for me, it's pretty high on the list. I like it. I wish the uniform thing was a little bit different, but it's clean. I like that clean look. And you can't get wrong. You can't go wrong with that classic D and the horse and the snorting and like, yeah, I think it's awesome.
So basically the Broncos have how many helmets they have? And maybe we're going to rule out some of the tweaks, but basically they had the brown helmet.
Yeah.
They had the Crazy Horse helmet, the orange one in the 60s.
Yep.
The plain blue 67, the D 68 to 96, the Cyber Horse they were calling that at one point.
Right. The Nike swoosh in his nose.
Yeah. And then the navy blue with a D and then the white with a D. All right. I'm going to start with this. The top helmets in Broncos history all have D on it. I'm going to say number 1 is the lighter blue, the Academy blue. Number 2 is white. Number 3 is navy. Next on the list is, I'll go with the current one, the current Horsehead one, even though as Orlando and I were saying on the radio just a little while ago, you can take that logo and put it anywhere. I like the D because that says Denver. That belongs to this city. That belongs to all of us.
Right.
The Horsehead, you can basically put that anywhere. I mean, high schools use that, right?
Yeah, little Pop Warner teams use that logo just with a different color.
The Brisbane Broncos used something very, very similar for a while in rugby down in Australia. So, there's that. The Crazy Horse one would be 5. The brown would be 6 because it's got the numbers on it. And I got to put the blue. We haven't figured things out for the 1967 season, so we're going to go without a logo. That's dead last for me.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a fair ranking, fair assessment. And yeah, all the best helmets have had the D on the side. So the D returns. It's a new helmet. And yeah, okay. People are excited. I don't think it can move much merchandise, though. I mean, in today's day and age, those Oilers uniforms, by the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, you could look this up if you want. I saw people on Twitter saying like they were selling out or they were trying to go to the team store. Like you're trying to figure out a way. The Seattle jerseys, it was the same thing. Like as soon as you see that, you're like, I want to buy it. With the Broncos helmet, you don't really get that opportunity. I guess you could buy a mini helmet or something.
People buy the mini helmets, but if you want to move merchandise, as Morty Seinfeld said, it's cheap fabric and dim lighting, but fabric's involved. So you need a jersey. That's the thing. A helmet isn't going to move the needle merchandise-wise in a way that the orange jersey, when they first brought that in as an alternate look in 2016, with the block numerals and the blue, white, blue stripes, that moved merchandise. And they haven't changed that. That's going to remain this year. So in that regard, it's not going to create the same kind of sense of buzz, which is why, and yes, I do love Seinfeld Media Critic, you're right, which is why, even though I got every sense that it was just going to be orange on orange, and we kind of got that sense over the last few months, part of me was hoping that they would do it like with a white jersey.
Yeah. And imagine a white jersey with, and this will sound weird, so ride with me, but a white jersey that kind of sparkles. You know how when you look at snow, especially freshly fallen snow, and it has that sparkle when you look at it just right in the sun?
That's
you
magical.
Could do that. I was going to say like with a snowflake imprint, but too many people would get triggered by that. But like have a white jersey, maybe the number sparkle, but like some sort of shininess to it, I think would kind of, a little understated, right? Don't want to get too wild and crazy, but like I think a white jersey that kind of shined would be really slick.
Okay, Damani Leach and the people who are working on the Broncos uniforms, I hope you listen to what Cecil said.
And give me a quarter of every jersey
that's
you sell.
Actually a freaking brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Because when you started that sentence, I mean, I'm like, oh man, I wish I'd thought of that. But you're right. Like, it's that magical look when the snow glimmers.
Yep.
Sometimes it's in the sunlight. Sometimes it's in the moonlight. These little shimmering bits all over.
Right.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
That would be awesome.
And you could do that. I mean, there's so much you can do now effects wise. Actually, in retrospect, maybe they should have done that with the white helmet. Because like you see like Chrome and you see Matt, you could, I get a little enthusiastic with the microphone.
Yes.
Okay. So you treat the helmet with something that allows for it to sparkle a bit.
Well, didn't we think the Jaguars helmets would change color? Remember when they were half and half?
That's what they supposedly
and they were supposed to do that?
No, they wasn't half and half. Before, for a few years, they had a helmet that was black, but was supposed to look teal in the light.
Okay.
In the sunlight.
All right.
And the effect didn't quite work.
It didn't work as they intended.
Thought it would.
But imagine a white helmet with those sparkles in it. I got a motorcycle helmet that looks like that.
So it can be done.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. This isn't like they're going to take a swing at it and it's going to miss.
No. Could easily do that. Imagine that underneath the lights, night game.
Well, that's when you do it.
Yeah.
And actually, I wonder if this uniform, you're going to want to have out the white helmets. Are you going to want to have it during a night game? Are you going to want to have it for a game where it might snow? I mean, that's a crapshoot, right? But are you going to want to hold off on it until November, December? Maybe. Okay. All right. I got it right here. I think you should wear those uniforms on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Play the Patriots on Christmas Eve night, primetime game. And at that night, everyone's, singing Christmas carols and whatnot. Frosty the Snowman, let it snow, got their Santa hats on and all that. It's lovely to get together to take a sleigh ride. It's lovely weather to take a sleigh ride together with you. So what could be more appropriate than wearing a helmet that the Broncos are acknowledging is to salute the snow-capped peaks of the Rocky Mountains.
Exactly.
Okay. So you have to wear the uniform on Christmas Eve. That's just period. Don't even think twice about that.
Period, point blank. Tie a bow on it with Lurker Troy's comment. They can wear a thong as long as they win.
Yeah, true. That's what it comes down to.
As long as they win, get back on track. We are on the verge of training camp, and we got the bad news. And I told you off air, I'll share it with everybody. I had an article about sleepers that could be starters. Well, Eyioma Uwazurike, and hopefully didn't hack his name too bad. May so correct me if I did.
Just call him Any. E-N-Y-I, pronounced Any.
Any.
Like a belly button.
He got suspended indefinitely for gambling. Now, there are other gambling suspensions that happen across the league. Some a while ago, like Jamison Williams, who got popped for 6 games. That was a couple months ago. It seems like there's these new suspensions for these players. This is the only indefinite one, if I'm correct. Others are just like 6 games. So the league made an example of Any, and it sucks because as you and I did position previews, you know what we said? Hey, defensive line depth is kind of a concern. Well, now it's even more of a concern.
It's more of a concern, and where you're talking about the bigger suspension is betting on football.
Mm-hmm.
So you bet on the NFL, that's an automatic year before you can ask for reinstatement. So, and that it cuts to the core of the credibility of the game. We could do a whole segment on the history of gambling suspensions going back about 6 decades. It's something the NFL very much considers a scarlet letter, a Rubicon that you cannot cross.
Right.
Of course, now the NFL's taking a lot of money from gambling.
They're in bed with all of these casinos. And then, I mean, obviously we don't want players gambling on football games, but it's like they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth because they're taking all the Vegas money or casino money. And yet their players, they're like hammering on even the guys that only got 6 games for playing fantasy football or whatever. Like, oh, okay, NFL, way to be hypocritical.
Well, the thing is, there's money to be had, right? So this is the reality that players are going to have to exist in. That the NFL, I do not believe they will change their rules regarding gambling on the NFL, just because of the credibility factor involved with it. That if you have the perception that there's any action on the game, it's a slippery slope. You start thinking, oh, is it fixed? Whatever. Jeremy comments, apparently these suspended players did not learn anything from the Calvin Ridley suspension last season.
Yeah.
I mean, how many examples do they have to be? And some of these suspensions, you mentioned fantasy football, other suspensions, it's like it's betting on other sports, but doing so on team time, which means at the facility or even at the hotel when you're on the road. That was sort of the gray area that ended up resulting in some suspensions. Players were on the road, they were on there, they were betting on a basketball game or whatever.
Travel to Vegas and it's their, I mean, that's where this complicated gray area comes into factor. Because if you're a young kid and you're on a team playing and you're in Vegas because you're playing the Raiders and you happen to go to a casino and you happen to bet on a college basketball game or something, like you're getting suspended now, I guess so.
Yeah. Welcome to the new age, basically. But now you're in a crunch here. You don't have Uwazurike.
Oh, this sucks.
Yeah. Our next item, we might as well just lump this in as well. You don't have Mike Purcell, so you're shorthand on the Dean line. With Mike Purcell, probably the guy you're talking about as a replacement is Tyler Lancaster, who they brought in free agency earlier in the offseason. And Purcell's on the NFI list, so he can come back. Uwazurike is out of the picture. Without Uwazurike, probably the biggest beneficiary is Matt Henningsen, the other day 3 D lineman they took last year. They could have been battling for the same snaps. Now I expect Henningsen's going to get the lion's share of those rotational snaps.
Right. And I don't think I've finished my story because I'm scatterbrained, but like that's what I was writing. I was writing like everyone's putting Matt Henningsen in the starting lineup. I'm not sure that any wouldn't have beat him out because he's got more natural talent. He's not as technically sound because Henningsen, as we mentioned in our position previews, he's like a mini Zach Allen. He does everything like Zach Allen does. He's not as good. He's not as big. He's not as fast, not as strong, but he's very technically sound. And now you're going to, because here's what I do, Mace. If I'm an opponent, you know what I do? I'm running right at Henningsen all day. Running right at him, running away from Allen, running at Henningsen's side all day. You better be able to stand up to that.
Fixing to find out, aren't we? As Gary Kubiak would say. But look, he's got some experience that he can build off of because he did play extensively last year. And that's why I thought ultimately in the end, in the rotation, I thought Henningsen would be ahead of Uwazurike when you got to the regular season. Because it's not like Henningsen is stepping backward, but you mentioned the upside on Uwazurike. Now for Uwazurike, this is the kind of thing that threatens his entire career.
Yes.
Because the train leaves the station and it keeps on going down the tracks without you. A year from now, who's to say they're not drafting another defensive lineman? And Henningsen, who we've talked about, he's got another year under his belt, gotten some reps, gotten more comfortable. All of a sudden, Uwazurike might be on path to where he's not around much longer.
Well, now we get into the conversation. I know it's right before training camp, and we don't have to go to specific names, Mace. If you have one, that's great. If not, don't worry about it. Because even I, in covering this entire league, I'm looking at other teams kind of who are going to be the leftovers. Now, if you're the Broncos and you have some positions that are, full of talent, for example, wide receiver, you might be calling teams about a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
And maybe he's down the list and he's down the depth chart, whatever. But there is a specific need for defensive linemen here. It got more urgent with this suspension. I mean, they're exceptionally thin at a place where they couldn't afford to be exceptionally thin or even a little bit thin. And they are right now. So if you're the Broncos, you're looking at other teams, you're saying, okay, who's fit our system? Who's still out there? I believe someone in the chat room said, bring back Shelby Harris. Like, there will be that sort of look now. If you're George Payton, you just got something else added to your list.
Yeah. I mean, you've got 9 defensive linemen on the roster, including the fellow who is a part of the NFL International Practice Squad program. If I tried to say his name, because I'm not looking at the pronunciation guide right now, I would stumble over it. But he's going to be basically on the practice squad. There's gonna be a spot for him.
Right.
But yeah, you start looking around. Jonathan Harris has a chance to impress. It's interesting with Harris, like, he just keeps hanging around.
Yeah.
Does the Lindenwood
it would remind you in a way, not skill standpoint, but just kind of in a way where like he's too good to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
But you're waiting for a little bit more. What we saw with Deshaun Williams, where it's like, okay, and I remember getting a call from Canada.
I think so.
Because I got plenty of friends up there that run teams, and they're like, hey, can you think Deshaun Williams would be available? I'm like, no way he's going to Canada. And of course we see him get a nice little contract this offseason.
Right. He goes to Carolina, goes with Ejiro Evero as a defensive coordinator. So
maybe Harris is that type of guy where you're just like, you see it and it's solid and you want to see some more development.
I think that's a legitimate possibility right now as you're breaking this down. I mentioned Lancaster, of course, as a rookie. PJ Mustipher, undrafted out of Penn State.
He's big.
He's
huge.
315 pounds, and that's what he's listed at. I think he's probably a few cheeseburgers beyond that. So that's okay. Hey, you want your nose tackles to be big, right? That's fine. Yeah. That's actually ideal. But the thing that now he gets more of an opportunity here. And it'll be interesting to see if the Broncos do look to add to that room, or if they say, okay, let's start camp with what we've got and see what these players can do early in camp before we end up making a move here.
Yeah.
So we'll find out here the next couple of days.
Well, plus we also know what they do. Teams might wait to sign a veteran until after week 1 when their salaries aren't guaranteed, because we've talked about running backs being an exploitative system or position. It's exploitative for almost everybody except for quarterbacks in this league. If they don't have to pay you and they don't have to guarantee you anything, they certainly don't want to. So they might see what the young guys can do. Hey, let's at least get through week 1. And then right before week 2, now you sign a veteran.
Yeah. You could say that for a lot of players at a lot of positions. Maybe former Bronco Dalton Reisner might be signing at that point.
I know, it's unbelievable.
I was thinking about him today because I drove from Wisconsin to Colorado the last couple of days. I drove past Wiggins, yes.
Nice.
And of course, you drive past Wiggins, the first guy you think of is Dalton Reisner, and thinking like, man, I recall him standing up at the press conference podium late last season, talking about how much he was looking forward to testing the market and seeing what was out there. Like, that was where you knew he was moving on. The Broncos were moving on from him. And he expressed excitement about that. And now, I mean, this business, it's cruel sometimes. Yeah. It's lucrative, but it's cruel.
Yeah, it's
Jarrett Garantano found that today, although unfortunately for him, only on the 53-player roster a few weeks last year. You hope he saved his money a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So we'll see. And former Broncos like Melvin Gordon get picked up by the Ravens. But, if it's Shelby Harris, if he's still out there, whoever those veteran defensive linemen are, expect the Broncos to be doing their homework on everybody, as a wise team would do. Expect them to be exploring trade options, as a wise team would do. But this really, at that position, you could have a suspension at almost every other position on this team, and you'd say, okay, this stinks, but they are all right. They got to, and listen, Jonathan Harris, fine, but inexperience. Like, I don't know if I need the Tommy Boy guarantee in the box mace. but I still feel uncomfortable about the defensive line because you don't have that experience, Lancaster notwithstanding.
I get that. Usually like one reserve to have started before
Right.
in a position group, so you can plug them in. But at the same time, young players with snaps do get better. Just like anybody improves with experience at any craft in life. And so I tend to be one who says, all right, let's see what these young guys can do. Let's get them out there. You're going to be in full pads by next Monday. Let's get them out there and see what they've got. Let's find out what is behind that door.
Right. Edward says Yannick Ngakoue. Is he still available?
Yeah, he's still available.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you have options, maybe not until after week 1, but you have options. And because you mentioned that the young players with reps get better, I'm going to tie a bow on it and bring it back
but
to what
he's
we
an
said.
edge is Ngakoue.
Right. Exactly.
He's
You need defensive
245,
linemen.
250 pounds.
Yeah.
Like
You need DL.
some would say you might need an edge, but you signed Frank Clark
Right.
back in June. So that need isn't quite as pressing right now.
Yes.
I'm thinking more along the lines of like a Michael Brockers, who I know Matt Smith brought up on Monday on the drive.
Yeah. That would make a lot of sense. More of a defensive end than an edge type of player like Ngakoue.
Right.
I'm also going to look at the XFL and the USFL.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about with Danucci and with Magoo.
Yeah.
Mr. Magoo is like, I want to see those guys that were getting snaps and maybe they're a younger player, but they got more experience. Might be in a different league, but they got that experience.
And you've seen them when the lights are on. Look, practice only shows you but so much. It's one of the reasons why the NFL needs some form of developmental league, because you need to actually see players in practical situations. I mean, the NHL has it. Major League Baseball has it. The NBA has it with the G League.
Right.
Even Major League Soccer has all their teams have reserve teams in MLS Next Pro now. I mean, how is it that the NFL, which is the biggest and baddest of these sports organizations here, these colossal sports organizations in North America, how is it the NFL doesn't have a true developmental protocol the way all the other majors do?
How have they been able to succeed in spite of themselves? And this is totally off topic, but look at every controversy the NFL has been through in the last 20 years, and they keep getting larger. I'm not going to watch the NFL anymore. Bull.
Yeah, the ratings say otherwise.
Yeah, you're watching the NFL.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
they like mess up all the time because they should have, as soon as NFL Europe folded, and they always said, oh, college football, it's our free developmental system. College football is almost a completely different game from the NFL. Completely different for offensive linemen, for wide receivers, like for a lot of positions in college football. It's a completely different game. So you can't use that as a crutch if the NFL doesn't want to spend the money that it would take to make the game better, to make teams better, to have players with more, fruitful lives because they were able to play longer because they got experience and they got film and people knew who they were.
And the other thing it would do, I mean, you say play longer for those who want to play longer. Some players are late bloomers.
Right.
And I mean, every so often you see it in baseball sometimes like, oh, well, this guy took a while, but he's age 28. He's finally making it to the major leagues and he's doing well. Happens all the time in these other sports that players just need a more circuitous route. And it was happening in the NFL. I mean, just looking at the quarterback position 25 years ago, when you had NFL Europe, you had Brad Johnson, you had Kurt Warner, you had Jake Delhomme. All three of them took teams to Super Bowls and all took the indirect route through NFL Europe.
Right.
And they got reps. They played in games. As a result, teams took another look at them because they could see that when the lights went on, they had what it took. And shoot, I mean, we talk about the difficulty in developing quarterbacks. Well, one reason it's difficult is you took away the alternative method of developing quarterbacks that actually was bearing some serious fruit.
Right.
For teams that were willing to send quality prospects over there. Boggles the mind.
Yeah, it does. They should have us run the league. Think we could split Roger Goodell's salary?
What is it now? 40 million?
Yeah, you get like 20 million.
I'll
get
take
20 million. We'll do that.
Yeah. I'll do it for a year. Give me $20 million for a year.
That's all
I'm
I
doing
need.
1 year, and I'm like, see ya.
There you go.
You know,
So you get all excited.
You're
again.
gonna find me by a pool someplace after that. I don't know. I mean,
I said no salt on the margarita.
yeah. Oh man, yes. Take my travelers checks to a competing resort.
That's right.
If you know, you know.
Office Space. We've done Seinfeld. We did Leslie Nielsen. I think the only thing we haven't done is some sort of Wayne's World reference.
Yeah,
which is shocking for us.
Yeah, I actually I couldn't help myself when I went on the drive just down the hall earlier, and I said, "Guess who's back? Back again. Mace is back. Tell a friend."
And that's how we do it here on Orange and Blue today.
I embarrass myself every day.
It's all good. Yeah. It's all good, man. I played our rock music for 3 minutes before someone told me. So
we're still in pre-camp mode here.
We're in pre-camp mode.
But you know what? Tomorrow we're going to hear from Sean Payton. We're going to hear from some players. We're going to looks like all this.
Hopefully we'll be there. Did they send the email yet?
I believe they
did they?
Yeah, here it is. Okay, here's what we got.
Okay,
right, we're going to share
what do we got?
We got Sean Payton at 11:30 tomorrow.
Okay.
We got players and team leadership at 12:45 on the outside podium. And then there'll be players available on Thursday. And yeah, the practices are open. So
practice is at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not for the public. This
not for the public,
for
but
media.
for media. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, I know what I'm doing.
There
tomorrow.
We go. All right. Our day is set.
Boom.
How's yours? I better change my haircut appointment. It was scheduled for 10.
I better not keep getting my haircut. Anyway.
Yeah.
Orange and Blue today. We are presented by Sean Fonda. He is Andrew Mason. I am Cecil Lammey. Thanks everyone for watching. Everyone, we love you. We appreciate you. Appreciate the support on the what ifs as well. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Love doing that.
Anyway, we got Broncos football to watch starting tomorrow and report about it for you right here on this show. He's Mace. I'm Cease. OBT is a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.